Hey guys, it's Harleywood. So I'm back from my elk hunt in Montana, and it was absolutely beautiful. If I could have written the script for this hunt, I don't know that I could have written it any better, with the exception of maybe Dad getting a kill. Now, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll know that I did have the fortune to harvest an animal. Dad did not. My dad is almost 70 years old and has struggled with asthma ever since he was a toddler. Montana's tough. I mean, those mountains, I don't think I really even knew how hard it was going to be. About a year and a half ago, I lost 50 pounds. If I hadn't, there's no way I could have done this. We had days that were down to 6 degrees, and the terrain is really challenging. So Dad, being almost 70, having asthma, man, I'm proud of him. He soldiered through it. But I saw probably more whitetail and mule deer in the first 5 hours in Montana. So we landed at like 1 o'clock. So between 1 o'clock and dark, I saw more whitetail and mule deer than I've ever seen in Georgia in my life. And I've been here 20 years, 19 years, it'll be 20 here soon. They were everywhere. They were in everybody's yard. Now, it was the rut, so there was probably a little bit more activity than normal, but still, I mean, tons of them. And I was kind of kicking myself because I did not get a deer tag. If I had gotten a deer tag, I was pretty much reserved to shooting a mule deer. And the mule deer, where I would have had to hunt for them, was in a very different location than where I would have had to hunt for the elk. And so it would have split my hunt up, and I would have had to hunt half the week here and half the week there. And I just didn't really want to do that. What I was not aware of at the time is that that tag would have allowed me to take a whitetail anywhere. And it's unfortunate because on day 3, I had a 10-pointer, big, huge body, looked like 300 pounds, walk about 110 yards behind me. Was oblivious that I was there, but he walked right behind me, and I could have had a nice, 10-point whitetail on the wall. But it is what it is. So this video is going to be a little bit different. I was not able to film every aspect of the hunt just due to the nature of how things played out, but I got a lot of great footage from just about every day of the hunt. And what I'll do is I'll fill in the gaps by breaking in, kind of like what I'm doing right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at day 1. Guys, it's Harleywood in Montana. Look at that view. Now, actually, right over here, over that ridge, it's private property. You can kind of see the fence line there. There's 200 elk bedded down, including a couple shooters. We're trying to wait for them to come out from the private property. So stay tuned. So as you can see, our guide got us onto a herd of well over 200 animals. They knew they were safe on that private property, though. They did not come off that private property. That first day, we did about 7 miles of hiking. And, well, my dad did about 5 of it. When they were posted up on the top of this hillside watching the herd, I told the guide, hey, I'm going to go, down this hill and do a little bit more. So I think all said, I did about 7. But it was, like I said earlier, it was rough. And unfortunately, the elk never left that private property that day. We watched them pretty much all day long, and they just knew they were safe. And what we were able to determine, though, because you could see the sign of them coming out all over the place. So they were coming out at night, going out into the timber to feed and do whatever they were doing. And then early daybreak, in fact, on the morning of day 2, my dad and the guy ran into them. Day 3, ran into them on the way back into the private property. They were all coming back off the timber and off the public into the private. Day 2 was probably one of the prettiest days in Montana. So it snowed overnight, and the guide wanted to take us to another spot where we thought we were going to go up into the hills a little bit and kind of watch for some sign. And we knew it had snowed, but we thought maybe it got 2 inches or so. Some of the places that we drove through, the truck damn near got stuck. It was all the way up to the bottom of the door, about 18 inches deep of snow in some places. Really, really thick, had chains on all 4 wheels, and didn't get stuck, luckily. But the night of day 1, I actually got food poisoning. I ate some fish, and was up all night. So, but what we did end up doing was we worked our way up to a ridge that looked back onto the private property that we had been looking at the day before, and we were able to get a full frontal view of it. So we stood up there and we glassed back to that property, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon we could see some hunters on some of these ridges, and the elk came off the private property, and all hell broke loose. Hunters were just blasting them. They were just shooting into this herd. And we learned later that 5 bulls got taken that afternoon when the herd came off the private property. So it was unfortunate, because if we had been where we were the day before, you know, we may have seen a little more action, but that's the way it goes, right? So they took a few bulls there, and the next day we decided that we were going to get kind of on both sides of the private property. Morning, guys. So look at that. Day 3 of the Montana elk hunt. It is, with the wind chill, 6 degrees right now. And made it to my spot. Had a little bit of a detour I had to take. I came up that ridge right there in the complete dark. I was supposed to be on this ridge. They both kind of meet down at the bottom, and I took the wrong one. But here's my spot for the day. Look at that view. Yesterday we were up on that range watching. There's a herd down in here, and we were watching hunters push them all over this range, and there's sign everywhere through here where they've been running. You can see some trail right there where they're running down the side of the hill. Oops, this way. So this is my spot for the day. We'll see how it goes. Could be worse places to be, right? Small group just came up right behind me. Right there. I mean, I was turned looking the other way for 5 minutes, turned around, they were right behind me. So I sat on that ridge from, I think they dropped me off around 5:30 or 6 in the morning and picked me up around the same at night. I sat on that ridge for 12 hours. The temperature was 6 degrees with the wind chill, and the wind at times was blowing 40 miles an hour. And I literally had to sit there with, I had thermal top on, I had a hoodie on, I had my camo shirt, my camo shirt, a hoodie, and then my jacket, and I had the hood up, and I've just got my back to the wind, and all day I was just getting pounded. But the elk never left the private property, and so we didn't see any action. I was on the west side of the private property, and my dad was on the other side, and we were kind of hoping. Now, on the way up that morning, my dad and the guy did run into the herd coming back onto private from public. Unfortunately, they were not able to get a shot on a bull, but it kind of, again, proved to us that every night they were leaving and then coming back really, really early in the morning. On day 3, as the sun was going down on top of that ridge, I saw the most absolutely beautiful sunset that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Montana's terrain is stunning. And I just sat up there, and at one point I FaceTimed my wife in. I had a full signal up there, actually. And at one time I FaceTimed my wife in, and I was like, just look at this, you know. And it was an amazing day. I was on top of that ridge, had that one little herd go by me, no shooters in that herd. And it's funny because when I walked up at night, there was no frame of reference. I had a headlamp on, and I'm walking up, and you've got maybe a 15-foot area around you that you can see. But other than that, you just know that you're on an incline, and I couldn't see how high up it was, so I just kept trudging along. And by the time I thought I crested, and I just kept walking, and then it went up again, and then again, and then the sun started to come up, and I'm looking back, and I'm like, damn. I could see the road. It was about 1.5 miles, but at about a 30-degree incline. I mean, it was a serious incline. And then I determined I was on the wrong ridge, had to hike down and back up onto the other one. And but it was a beautiful day. Like, that's one of the days that I'll look back on as an actual hunt, like where I was actively walking that ridge down to the bottom of the ridge where it started to drop back off, and hunting both sides of the ridges, hoping they would come out of either gorge. It was a really beautiful day. Day 4, though, that's the day where it happened. So day 4, and action right from the start. So we got up on that ridge right there, which is the backside of that private property that I told you I was on yesterday. And no sooner did we get set up, and back where I was yesterday, all these gunshots went off. There must have been 10 or 11 shots. And I don't know if you can see it, there's a house right there. That's the top of it, just peeking over that hill. The herd is hiding inside there, and we could see them from up here, and we watched them run down that way as all the gunshots were going off. So I booked it down this damn hill, came running down here, went all the way out to that point there, hoping to catch them coming off the back. And sure enough, that ridge right there is the one that I walked up yesterday. That was the wrong ridge to come up, and they all ran up to the top of it. It's about a 900-yard shot from there. I'm not taking that. And then they all ran back onto private property. And my guide's back up here. He said, it's been, I don't know, 10 or 11 minutes. He said, now they're all back up here, and there's a bunch of timber up here. So now I'm walking my ass back up this hill. So at this point, the elk started moving their way down back towards where my dad was. We had left him about halfway up the mountain, and they started jumping the fence off of private onto the national forest, onto the public land. And so we worked our way from up here. We went around Dad because the herd had kind of made this big wide split, and they were crossing in a couple different points, but we went down and we went around him. Then the guide went back to get my dad, and he said, he handed me the tripod, and at first I said, no, I'm going to move faster without it, let me just go. And he said, well, what I want you to do is run down, go down and see if you can cut the herd off at a lower pass. And he goes, but trust me, take the tripod. And I said, okay. So I took the tripod and I just booked it down this hill, and I found an old logging road. I hit the logging road and just headed down to where I thought and you could hear them off in the distance. If you've ever hunted elk, especially when they're in a herd, they make this ew, ew, ew. They make all these sounds, and from every once in a while the bulls will bugle. And so I could hear them, and as I'm going down this road, I hear that they're getting closer, and sure enough, I come around this one bend, and it looked like a scene out of National Geographic. There were literally hundreds of animals running and jumping across the road. And it's like in National Geographic when the wildebeest are trying to jump over the rivers that are, infested with crocodiles. They're literally just pouring over this road. And I tried to set the tripod up, and I go to unsling my rifle, and the tripod falls over in the snow, and the snow's pouring, and I pick up the tripod, I get it back up, and I put the rifle up, and I'm just watching through the rifle. First, the end of my rifle, the end of the scope had caked up with snow, so I come over and I get all the snow off, and I look through again, and the back is fogged up, so I literally licked the back of my scope to get the condensation and fog off the back of my scope. And then I'm just sitting there and I'm watching, and it's cow, 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 spike, cow, cow. And all of a sudden this bull runs up right to the edge of the road and just stops and looks back up the road at me, about 100 yards. And so boom, I pulled the trigger. Pretty sure I got a double lung shot, and I just called the guide. The herd went split, they went in both directions, and I think I actually got a little bit of footage of that. Let's watch how that went. See him jumping down there? I just got a shot on one, and the rest are running backwards. So that's kind of the tail end of all that elk movement. Like I said, when I shot, the herd split, and I ended up moving down closer, setting the tripod up again and watching, and they kept running across the road. And so I called the guide and I was like, you need to get Dad down here. They were about 600 yards up the hill. They finally made it down there, and Dad he had the same problems. He had snow on his optic and condensation and everything else. But finally he got set up on the tripod, and the guide and I were glassing the crossing, and we were calling it out, spike, spike, because we could kind of see a spot before they jumped into Dad's line of fire. And so we were calling everything that was coming next, and just tons of cows and spikes. No shooter bulls end up coming into the frame. So unfortunately Dad didn't get anything. We went down after that, and the guide said, well, which way did he go? And I said, honestly, I'm not sure because of the way they split. And he said, well, I'm going to go up this way. You go back the way that they had come from, and let's see if we can find blood. So we started doing our Z patterns back and forth. And I ended up finding blood on my side. I called the guide. About 10 minutes later, he called me and told me that he had found the animal, and we had to, the animal was double lung shot, the bull was double lung shot. We had to put it down, you know, to keep it from suffering. And I'm not going to show any of that footage, but I'm going to show you the end of this hunt here in a second. But let me just say that this, if you get a chance, especially if you have a loved one that can make a trip like this, it doesn't have to be something fantastic. It doesn't have to be a Montana hunt or anything like that. But this kind of puts it into perspective on how busy we get and how much we sometimes forget to spend time with those who are important to us. This was an awesome time for my father and I. He even said, it's funny because he wanted me to get an animal, and in the beginning of the hunt, the first day we got there, I had some time with the guide by myself, and I had told him, look, if Dad and I are together and a shot presents itself, I want Dad to take the first shot. And I said, because it's likely I'll get to do this again in my life. I don't know that Dad will or will want to. This kicked his ass pretty good. He might, you know, another couple years, maybe we'll do a mule deer hunt, but find a way to spend time, especially if your father, uncle, whoever is important to you is into stuff like this. Make it happen. I'm extremely thankful to my wife. When I turned 39, she started this hunt fund for me, and it was in preparation for my 40th birthday. I just turned 40, went on this hunt, and it was epic to be able to say that my father and I have done a Montana elk hunt. You know, nobody will ever take that part away from us, even if we had never harvested. So let's go ahead and roll in the rest of the footage here, and I'll just sign off now and tell you thank you for watching. Found blood right there. All right. Eating lunch on the back of a truck. This is Virgil, our guide. Virgil, what are you making for us, man?
Everything.
We got some coffee going here, some chili mac with a little homemade spoon. And
Tabasco.
Tabasco out of an old MRE. There you go.